Shirley here with Sirius Talis Moon. This is Mars, our Saturn day. Mars is 28 degrees Libra, separating from. No, Mars is 20 degrees Libra, separating from an opposition to Chiron and Aries in Aries, and applying to square an out of bounds Pluto, which is going to be also crossing over the Bilderberg and Belsen's chart. Uh, so let's talk about sex and money. um, uh, okay. um, I'm going to use a phrase in another context. Big shout out to 13 Moon Tarot on YouTube. And in one of her readings, she addressed something about allowing our soul to be rested. And the topic of hierarchy and certain people that are hierarchical thinking and certain people that are not so hierarchical thinking. So out of that context, okay, let's take a phrase and snatch it and bring it in another completely different context. Um, when it comes to, I talked about sex cults, and I'm going to caretake for a video about sex cults while broadcasting. um, so yeah, one of the meditative exercises that I did was really honing into that feeling of the heart when the soul is rested. And like I said, the astral is a busy bee. And when it comes to um, people that try to eroticize that and think hierarchically or have hierarchy imbued with their erotic desire, like I said, I'm not into that. So I don't judge any people that for their kings, God forbid, um, but I'm not into hierarchy, I guess. And so one of the meditative eurekas that I had with myself was the certain people, what makes their soul rested um, erotically is not hierarchy. And so a lot of the Pluto Scorpios are going to be unfolding a lot of dumbfuckery because because when a person is not having their soul rested within a hierarchical erotic situation, um, they're like the Gedel point. Okay, they're gonna need accommodation. They're gonna need to be partaking in economy. They're gonna need to be able to make an income. And as Teal Swan puts it, we are relational people. So continuing on to this episode about the nuances and the sex codes and so on, when it comes to the people that don't have their soul rested in hierarchical erotic setting, um, yes, it's very important to respect their sovereignty and accommodate the structures of the economy. Again, the applying Mars going over Bilderberg and Belsen chart with an out of bound Pluto square in it is so pinpointed right now, because this is a group of people that gather around certain rituals. And of course, they do rituals that are downright bluntly, not nuanced. Um, but this is basically a pack of European billionaires meeting a pack of American billionaires. Um, and they all have a wound around psychosexuality to do with hierarchy. Saturn ruling over Chiron in the last decade of Capricorn. And again, I'm absolutely not king shaming anybody. There are people that have their soul rested erotically in hierarchic situations, and this is fantastic as long as they're safe, sane, and consensual. Um, but the fact that our economy is run by people that both have a certain hierarchy kink that not all humanity partakes in, and we all need housing, and we all need to be able to make a life while making a living. Um, and not only that, they have a wound around exactly that point, and it's a wound of embodiment. So even their kink that could perhaps be celebrated, either this is an authentic kink that needs to be celebrated in same consensual ways, and definitely not run the economy. Like a person can be kinky in their own, but they can't account for the entire economy and the entire political structure. Definitely not the global political structure. Definitely not during Pluto out of bounds in Aquarius. Um, Guillotine and such. Like, so, but not only that, is that this is practiced out of a wounded lack of embodiment state, which almost naturally um, violates the sexual sovereignty of both the self and others. So, um, yet again, okay, we're not talking about lack of competence here. We're talking about uh, fragmented trauma that a lot was put into these people being in incredible traumas, and the obsession with power is actually very human and very understandable in those contexts, including the myriad of emotions that can be around the longing to have one's soul rested, which as a ritual abuse survivor, okay, MK often survivor as well, I find it very relatable. Okay. We need to rest. We also need to have our soul rested, and also on erotic level to feel that we can um, have our soul rested and be safe and free and enjoy, and that's just so fucking humane. And the longing for that while having to discern every single thing and meet the needs in a way that is standing in our power, in those oscillations can create anomalies that are indeed affecting our economy, availability of housing, policies, and whatnot. Even without extortion calls into the mix, okay? Like, and then you add extortion calls, which is even worse. Um, so, another point of discernment here is to ask oneself what makes their soul rested, both erotically and not erotically. Um, One of the things that I took from Annika Lucas is a technique where she looks at her hand, and it's about accessing different parts of the self. People don't have to have deed to practice that. And ask of oneself, am I calm? Am I connected? Yes. Am I compassionate? Can also be self-compassion. And am I curious? Childlike curiosity. So people, when they feel safe and free, even animals, okay, when they feel safe and free, they begin to play, be playful, and people begin to be playful when they feel safe and free. Now, naturally, a lot of the people that have the approximation of a soul rested in hierarchical situation, okay, I'm not talking about people that's the genuine king. They would not have a problem with anybody who's not hierarchical. And this is a discernment point. I'm going to say that. Okay, Here one has to consider, not having the same kink is not rejection. Okay, people can be attracted and not have the same kink, or not having the kind of like the only shape juxtapositions of circle where that's the joy that they can celebrate together, willingly, consensually. Um, I don't know. They don't have to have a yoni to. Can also work between two men or two penis people. Um, so um, when it comes to a person not being able to accept that the other person is just not going to be hierarchical, that can denote um, of a wound that can denote of that hierarchy and even kinky settings, at least to some degree, might not be the entire spectrum of a person's sexuality. Um, and you think about who are the people who have most problem with, let's say, gay men. I'm not talking about the real estate goggle mogul thing. It was just like, okay, uh, straight men that may have some gay inclinations. Okay, so the same thing. People that have an anarchy, a non-hierarchical erotic desires that perhaps they're not tending to, actually are the ones that are going to be the most troubled about fearing to be the loser, the soft one, or it's kind of weird because they'll be they'll be the submissive to another before they'll be in an equal partaking. But the only reason ever that they would have a problem with people not going into sexual hierarchical situations, or feeling their soul is rested erotically and non-erotically elsewhere, um, is not about the fear of rejection, because attraction can be. It's about there's something there that they're not looking into in the essence of their own desire, and whatever that thing is can denote um, that there is an embodiment process that needs to be um, okay. And again, it can be that it can be that what triggers them is simply the gap in sense of embodiment and not the hierarchy or not hierarchy. And it can be that what triggers them is that they had run into a sexual freedom zone that they don't know how to process, whether they may or may not have those erotic desires or not. So, because sexual boundary violation can create anomalies around experiences of power, then um, a lot of the trigger can be experienced as feeling disempowered at the face of an embodied person that is in touch with their yes, no, and maybe. Which basically means that those people either can only be embodied in certain situations and other situations trigger that and and it's important to see, okay, kind of like where's the trigger and what does it supposedly sit on, um, or that they can be embodied only when they are um, uh, trying to unethically control others, whether from or not. This all has to do with programming in the case of people that were programmed. And because this is such a societal issue, Okay, whether it's the entertainment, try to find a love song that is actually loving. Okay, try to find an actual love song about a love that is actually loving, a love that is not an escape for something, longing for something, heartbreak and or betrayal. Very, very rare. Um, and if you look at how the music industry works, you understand why. so, um, so again, it's those embodiments that are a part of the antidote to um, to the everythingness that is happening. People partaking in rituals that are harmful, okay, erotically harmful rituals, not even necessarily only sexual rituals. People expecting that people will be in a certain type of hierarchy or organization or um, that's just not a go for everyone. And the more people have that expectation, the more, and again, a person that is, let's say a person is clergy and are very happy being a clergyman, and let's say they somehow managed to not have to rape children in the process. Um, okay, so they're happy being a clergyman, they're happy being in a hierarchy, they're good. They see a person that is absolutely not fit to that. They're like, there's no problem, there's no trigger, there's no, okay, this is me, that is the other person. Only the people that aren't fully there, that see a non-hierarchic person and and the world falls apart. And usually they try to defend themselves with, "Can't you see you're in this setting, you're in that setting? Um, I never consented to this setting or that, but you came here to learn a degree." Um, okay, and but this is how it works. Isn't that the place where we make scientific revolutions, structural revolutions? By the way, in my time, there was a democratization of the election of a dean in academia. I may or may not have contributed to that. Um, and they changed the entire campaign from innovation to excellency. Um, what happened to the PGU? Anyway, it was one of the top ranking universities. But it's not compatible with trafficking. Um, and when they do that in all academias and they persecute the people that go against that, then you can understand how COVID was created. Um, more things. Okay, so here's the thing: having one's soul rested, genuinely and authentically having one's soul rested, really exposes what are the underlying mechanisms that where we have our soul authentically rested. Because when we even point to that, or even set attention to that, having our soul completely rested requires being safe and free. Doesn't happen in hierarchies for a lot of people. Some people it happens, and some people need some sort of hierarchical structure, and that's okay. But it's just not going to happen for a lot of people, and it works not only on the erotic level, it also works on sovereignty. Okay, and any structure in society that does not accommodate for these people is risking invasion, terror, and other things that completely completely it's like that they absolutely don't have to happen if people are allowed to be who they are. And Aquarius is again the people that are not hierarchical. Okay, Aquarius is, yeah, I know that because it's ruled by Saturn, there are a lot of Aquarian people that Saturn rules time and history. Aquarius is the Saturn outside the hierarchy. It's a Saturn that looks into the architecture that holds the water. It's absolutely not hierarchical. I know because people have, with Saturn, people have connection to the past. And the only evident past that they can connect with is the patriarch man that is fearing because it has been occupied by the masonry. Okay, we need to stop thinking of Aquarius as masons. Architecture is not masonry in the sense of Freemasonry. I know I've created another provocation right now, um, because a lot of men are believing that they are connecting with themselves when they connect with a supposed archetype that only has its very weird limitations. And again, nothing wrong with having kink. Like if you're an Aquarian and you have a hierarchy kink and you fully embodied, you will not be triggered by people that are not into that kink. Unless you have a wound around embodiment. Okay? A good disposition is um, if somebody tried to tell another person what their feelings are, what their kink is, what their um, okay, to try to convince someone that they have a kink that they don't have. Again, and that the issue is that most of these people are also in the networks that practice blame shifting and trafficking children. So it's but I'm talking about, okay, authentically. Um, if you find yourself trying to tell somebody um, what is their kink, and you feel, the more certain you feel about that, the more you need to ask yourself, okay, why are you looking outside? Um, Now, there's some circumstances where, you're sitting in your bed and receiving healing energy and like, oh, that's lovely. Then somebody tries to take it into an erotic place, like, okay, no. That's a different situation than, people actually um, initiating stuff. And here's the deal: if there is, how should I say that, personality molding embedded into the kink, into the eroticism, that can be incredibly triggering when a person runs into an embodied person that is likely to flow with them a little bit and then give them a full stop. And this is where people sometimes become erotically obsessed. Underneath obsession is a desire to embody something. And here I think the desire to embody is embodiment during sensuality. They can be the approximation of embodiment, but if somebody only feels embodied when they try to coerce someone, then and then that can denote of a ritual abuse programming. Um, our authentic sexuality is not rapey. I know that that's that's thought-provoking for people. But our authentic sexuality is not rapey. If a person was traumatized, then um, also when it comes to trauma, people that have difficulty discerning whether the other person is also there or not, this is can denote of certainly something to do with trauma. So because those things are so associated with finances and wealth and abundance, and attempts to it can be downright attempts to like do rituals to take one's creative energy, keep one from connecting with their own sensuality, which is beyond horrid. Um, and definitely when it's practiced, yes, it's not safe, sane, and consensual. Like people can celebrate all kinds of kinks when it's safe, sane, and consensual, and each one can opt out. So you think business deals. Now, a lot of those sexual energies are used to create an erotic rapport and psychosexually brain control. This is what the Bilderberg do. Okay, Bilderberg and Belsen. It is attempt to psychosexually bring the person to um, normalize, agree with, go through a certain policy. I don't know if it came from the European or came from the American, but you can imagine when that thing is being practiced, not safe and consensual, everybody traumatized to the bone, um, and okay, feeling needing to feeling sexual confidence, um, or feeling confidence in sexual connotations, which is and feeling embodied only when they practice those coercive techniques that are undermining themselves as well. You understand that this out of bound Pluto squaring the Saturn of Bilderberg and Belsen chart is has it's a challenging transit, and there are not enough understatements to describe how much of an understatement is that. Um, but then when people try to force an identity on someone through rape, basically, and depend the housing on that, um, what we're gonna see is houses exploding. Everybody remembers my sex scraper meme with the 9/11. It's asking for it. I was not joking. Houses exploded in the Netherlands afterwards, and that was Uranus going over the 1800 moon chart of the Netherlands. So that was exactly the houses that sex trafficking took place in. And then the entire house exploded, so they evacuated the entire neighborhood. And this is Netherlands, mind you. So it's not Israel. They're not used to that shit. But then there would be attempts to traffic the people that are homeless, and then the problem becomes bigger. So everybody has to tend to the trafficking problem, which means that when it comes to one's own body, home inside their body and home inside their dwelling, um, basically, if somebody violated that, basically the entire world can go boom. And that's a nuclear holocaust, my friends. So, and this is how it's birthing a nuclear holocaust that is global. And yeah, so the issue is that there is a psychosexual trigger to embodiment economy that actually works in favor of the people and in favor of itself, well-being, and love itself is basically creating triggers around love, because love was used as a bait that would later bring into horrendous rituals. And mind you, they went on the rejection, the treason, the betrayal, and so on and so forth. So that way everybody's susceptible to be extorted, and then extorted by videos of them doing horrendous things to children. Um, and again, I don't claim to have all the solutions, but discussing the problem, bringing light to the problem, um, is a part of creating change, because this affects definitely the problem gotten bigger. Okay, definitely that affects a lot of people. Um, and being informed of the MK often and the role it plays in those trafficking rings is again very important, because um, the susceptibility to be a study case um, is is increasing when one denies, let's say, that something exists, or and unfortunately, like I said, after I escaped that MK Ultra for therapy, I said the children will speak, and they do. And I said, now the whole world is going to know what's energy, because I was threatened that the world is not knowing what's energy. Um, and now everybody knows what is MK often, or spiritual warfare, or psychic attack. And by the way, there was supposedly schizophrenia. And this is where I follow people's content, and I'm like, I know I have to hold the space between me and myself, because I know this lady was very likely ritually abused and attempts to traffic her. She doesn't know that. She thinks she's schizophrenic, and I have to be very patient. And one of the things that worked for her was like eating food. Non-inflammatory, like food, not the food that causes inflammation or processed or even excess grain, but food, like eating food. That's apparently it's very good against schizophrenia to have food that is actually fooding. Um, yes, you know what keeps people from killing themselves? Having access to choice whether to continue to live or not. So what causes person to be suicide, to ideate suicide? Lack of choice. Um, and the fact that people oh, I talked about the fact that when I was kind of volunteering uh, for basically speaking with people that were suicidal, and we were kind of like a pack of people from all over the world that were helping one another. Um, then one of the cases, somebody talked about a girl standing on the roof, and she was told that she's loved, and somehow that made her not jump that day. And I was like, wow, this was so surprising for me. Um, just imagine this state of, and in mental health, there's people cannot really talk about suicide, because there is the fear that people will try to stop them from, and putting them in the same trauma that perpetuated the issue. And just to, okay, and if a patient, let's say, mentions this topic, then it's already this sensitive spot, even when they turn anonymously for help. So as we were the first frontier on Omegle, where practically nobody bothered to check. And one of the videos that I was releasing about MK often, some of my colleagues telepathically were like, surely you are loved. And so um, so I make people skip heartbeats sometimes. um, and yeah. so, so yeah, what was this video about? Sex trafficking and MK often, plus what to do about that. Yeah. I think that's pretty much okay.